Hello guys and welcome back, it's Airsick Hydra here, and in today's video we're going to be running through specific builds for weapons. That's right, this is the first in the series where we will be focusing on the Exitus rifle for the assassin. In my opinion, this gun is one of the most fun and useful ranged weapons in the game. That is putting the rather overpowered anti-healing on the needle rifle to one side. I'm presuming one day that will be slightly nerfed and the Exitus will reign supreme. Moving on now, let's go into the weapon tree and see what skills, or rather let's see what character points we've got invested first of all. So you'll see I've picked up the perk that lets me do 20% bonus damage, but I do not deal any critical hits. As a result over here you'll see I have 0% crit chance. This is because I have invested nothing in my gear or in my points into the critical hit tree. Now you'll see I've invested instead heavily into the accuracy tree, giving me 11% extra range damage as a bonus. And here we also have suppression resist bonus per hit and suppression damage bonus overall, which is very handy for a tree, or for a gun rather, that applies a lot of extra status effects. We'll be going through those in a little bit more detail in a moment. Now, instead of gathering lots and lots of critical hit on my gear, I've gone for plus ranged damage. You'll see I'm up to 32% here in total, which I think is a fairly healthy amount. Let's now go into the skill trees and see what we've got cooking. Firstly, let's bring up the shock tactic tree. You'll notice here we have 3, 6, 9, 12 damage for armor breaking, armor piercing, shield piercing type attacks. So in order to make use of this, let's make sure we have a weapon ability that actually does these things. There we go. Single shot applies an armor-piercing effect on the target. So straight away we're getting 12% extra damage to this. As well as this, our sniper shot also benefits. And again, our pervasive shot is also armor breaking. So 3 of our attacks thus far are already getting 12% extra damage. We're off to a great start. You'll notice here we also get 10% suppression damage to these attacks, and we also get a 20% damage penalty for those that we knock down with our aimed range ability. You'll notice any aimed range ability with a sniper rifle, once an enemy has lost their suppression you will knock them down, and then they will deal 20% less damage if they're in combat with any of your friends. You shouldn't really be in combat, you do have a sniper rifle. You will also notice up here we've gone for some increased slow and shock duration, a total bonus of 10, 20, 30%, and as well as this an extra bonus to the actual slow of the shock effect itself, and finally 10% damage bonus against targets affected by a slow, and shocks also apply a slow, so we're basically doing another 10% damage to these targets. Now the question is, what do we have that applies a shock? Well, we have our first ability here, the single shot. So straight away, the moment we shoot someone, we apply a shock and we'll be dealing an increased duration and 10% extra damage to that target for the next 3 seconds, which is increased by another 20%, so roughly 3.5 seconds. So we're off to a good start already in terms of damage. Let's move on with the skill trees and see what else we've got. Now you'll see here, I've gone for the reduced skill cooldown by 1 second when the character is hit, but only for skills of longer than 3 seconds. So actually at the moment, we only have one skill that's longer than 3 seconds, which is our piercing shot. But I've actually got this for the grenade and the armor type ability cooldowns, working with the presumption that this helps your armor abilities reset their cooldown quicker when you take damage, which I think is incredibly useful if this actually takes effect. However, I haven't tested it fully. Also here we have an extra 3% damage when our suppression is green, and realistically it should pretty much always be green. Moving on now, the last ranged skill points we have spent are into the ranged combat skills. Remember, once again, we don't have critical hit on our character, so therefore investing into the critical hit tree is rather useless. Let's move on and see what I've spent my skill points in here today. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points invested at 1.5% ranged bonus damage. So that is a 6% total to our ranged attacks. Rather nice, rather easy to spend these points, and I think any ranged character would benefit from this. We also get 10% damage bonus to ranged weapons if they're further away than 5 meters, or rather if all of the enemies are further away than 5 meters. Again, pretty useful to be using. You should be kiting, so that's basically a free 10% damage to them. And then we have ranged weapon damage by 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% when they're under the effect of a slow, shock, stun or freeze. So we had the 10% earlier, now another 30% when they're affected by a slow, stun, shock or freeze. And remember, our first ability applies that shock to the enemies. We also have the bonus reload time, which is really useful because snipers do not have a big clip, they do a lot of reloading. Now you're probably wondering, after spending a lot of time saying do not invest in any crit for this build, I have 2 points up here, invested. I'm not losing my marbles, but I do really want Urban Warfare. Any skill with a cooldown longer than 1 second will gain a 30% reduction to its cooldown, and you'll notice that a lot of our skills, in fact all of them, have a cooldown greater than 1 second, so straight away our rate of fire, when in cover with our primary ability, goes up 30% from 1.5 seconds to 1 second, which is a great start. Okay, it's a fraction off of 1 second, but it's close enough. We also have 3 seconds on the next two abilities, Sniper Shot and Hellfire Shot, meaning you can alternate these roughly every 1.5 seconds. You can alternate between these two if you're looking to clear lots of ranged units. Just remember that you need to use the single shot in order to apply the shock to do, let's say, 40% more damage due to all the skills we have from the other two. So just bear that in mind. You do still want to be using single shot, not just spamming the other two. And ideally you want to do a single shot on an enemy before you snipe them because it will do a chunk more damage. Guys, that is the build in a nutshell. It does huge amounts of burst damage, it slows and stuns enemies rather well. If you're looking at what other stats to build into for your items, I would suggest building extra suppression damage, because the quicker you take away their suppression, the quicker you'll be able to stun and knock them down with your ranged hits. Ranged damage is a given. You could go with Fleshbane and dot damage and other things for the 2 ability to help your AoE clear, but I don't think that's strictly necessary. And anything else that you find useful, basically a bit of damage mitigation, some extra accuracy in particular, because every point of accuracy is 1% extra range damage. There's loads of stuff you can build into here. Just remember, critical hit strength will not be of any use to this build. Now, let's jump into the game and see this build in action. Guys, hope you've enjoyed the video so far. Let's play through a little bit of gameplay now. Groovy. Let's rock and roll.
Oh, rifle.
I'm loving the heavy bolter.
Yep.
I was thinking of going heavy bolter as well. My ranged.
Oof, flame damage. Flame damage hurt.
Push up the habit.
Right, what way are we going? Oh, we're getting boxes again. Okay.
Yep.
Any boxes?
So we'll have to check all them up.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one.
I think we should have gone the longest way, because sometimes, well, most of the time there's 7 chests on this map. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So we can double back, though.
we should purge all of them.
Blap, 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 blap. That used to destroy my frame rate in this game. The CPU's happy with it now, but god, that used to do bad things.
Ouch.
Right. Goodbye, Plague-Ridden. Another chest here. I wish you could push them off the edge.
Ouch.
Still them playing this one.
Something ordered.
I'm getting you up. Keep them busy, boys. It's probably the flame. If you randomly die, then it was probably a sneaky bit of flame on the floor that you hadn't noticed.
Or hadn't shown.
Yeah, or that hadn't
Randomly
loaded correctly.
ignited for no reason.
I can't see a chest on that side, so I'll just keep rolling up here.
You. Yeah, that
Are you
makes me
kicking a
fucking
barrel
mad.
along? That's cool. Oh, the spike damage is huge. How about them apples? I feel like a plasma cannon would go well.
Yep.
I've tried it a few times. The heavy bolt is definitely the best.
I like the salvo ability on it though, or the volley, whatever you call it.
Yeah, it really falls off though. That's really cool.
Yeah, I've not tried it at like high level. It's got a nice
Ooh.
clear at low level.
No.
I'm just gonna shield you for a second. That awkward moment when the assassin was the shield.
Well, all of a sudden my health just vaporized.
Yep. Welcome to our world.
It's like being in a fishbowl when you're inside this.
Ooh. That did ignite me, but I managed to dodge it because I didn't take damage.
Yeah, you've got damage immunity frames now when dodging. Well,
Is that new?
it's a thing. No, it's not new.
Assassin LP nerf.
Some people weren't aware of it. If you time
Yeah,
it
but
well,
you have to time it exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
If
just
you
well.
dodge too early, then you can still get hit afterwards by like havocs and things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I still get the animation of being on fire, but it hasn't.
Yeah, yeah. There's been some maps where I've hide. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Those bolters aim me alive.
Throwing a grenade at him, get in there.
The turret's dead. Oh god. Oh god.
Grenade him.
Love it.
Just when one bullet is not enough.
Exactly. Okay, that's a nice bug.
May as well go straight ahead. There might be mobs on that bridge. We don't have to do all of them. In
Oh,
fact,
we've got a whole other sector to explore.
The big sector.
Yeah, this is a big old map.
get that flame as well. Ah, no.
I love how debris falls in slow motion. As if it's made of polystyrene on a windy day.
Two havocs incoming from the north.
There's also a flame. Just gonna deal with that flame.
Oh
No,
dear
not-
sweet Jesus.
Watch out for flame hydra.
3 havocs left.
Stop shooting missiles at me, you dicks.
Gotta love how accurate the heavy bolter isn't though.
Yeah.
So the 2 ability's pretty good at range though, or your right mouse button if you hold it for long enough.
Yeah.
It does
Well,
the
it's
job.
Kind of the same with the
Not as
plasma
fun as the
as well. That was like,
Yeah, exactly. It's not as fun as the first ability. This is true. I love it.
This is a bit ridiculous.
Hey man, if it gets the job done, it's not ridiculous.
Chest over here.
No,
I think
I'm-
the gun definitely needs a needle rifle with it though, because of how long it is between shots.
I mean, the amount of boost people take, sometimes by fluffing, you turn a pump off here, I think.
Should we do this little offshoot bit? there's a chest on it. Like, we can clear the rest of the mission if you want, or we can just jump into another. Oh, okay. Classic case of dodge but take damage anyway. Like a literal hose. Right. That's okay. I'll take cover over here. Good job, man. Good job.
One blessed alloy.